So, Josh, I'm sure you recall Rebecca's sister was in town a while back, and we were at a live music venue that you know. It's called Throw Social in Delray.
Mm-hmm.
So there are bathrooms in the back, and I actually called them the best bathrooms in Delray. They've made relentless fun of me because it's actually it's not great inside the bathroom, and I've never been in the ladies' bathroom. I was only referring to their location because they were private and there was no line. So this will be at least the best podcast you're listening to right now.
This is The Back Nine with Dennis Williams and Josh Mora.
All right, so, I mean, it's so much fun of me that every single time we're there, she's like, take a picture in front of me, and she puts her hands up in the air like this and sends it to her sister like, I'm in front of the best bathroom in Delray. And I really only meant it because the two inside the venue are always a huge line, and I feel like it's a hack. Like, I know this secret bathroom in the back, and it's kind of a dump, but at least you don't have to stand in line.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. I as you know, I live in Orlando. Our audience knows I live in Orlando when I come down here to record. Orlando is known as the City Beautiful. Well, there is an Instagram account that is the something else beautiful, where they take pictures of all of the best bathrooms in Orlando, which I think is fantastic.
Right.
So
that's pretty good.
A good bathroom in any restaurant or any public venue is really important to the success of that venue, I think.
Well, and again, it was really just it's location. Busy things get,
baby.
How busy things get back there. So
especially in that bar, in that concert venue. It's a great venue.
Yeah, well, as you know, I recently got back from a trip in Boston, which was absolutely terrific. I got to see my youngest daughter, who was starting law school.
Yes.
This week.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And my oldest daughter, who is wrapping up her job with Blue Chair Bay Rum on Kenny Chesney's tour. Now, I know we're recording this at a different time, but it's still worth talking about.
Congratulations on that, too.
An incredible week. And then we were with a client as well. So just a great week up in Boston. And that is our perfect segue to our guest, Kim Carrigan Kim. And she's a connection through this Boston stuff that I was doing with a client out there called High Tech Windows and Siding, which is a client that Kim and I are working on in Boston together with. Kim, so great to have you. I'm going to give the audience your bio real quick here. You are a longtime news anchor in Boston, most notably at WFXT, the Fox affiliate, where you were a morning show host. You left that, I think, in 2012, 11 or 12, and then you moved on and have had a substantial radio and podcast career. Now you're the host of Carrigan and Company podcast and the New England Business Report on WRKO on the weekends. So you've kept your broadcasting career going in the audio space, which is where we are right now. Kim, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
First off, guys, thank you so much for having me. And can I just share a bathroom story with you?
Yeah, of course. We roll with it. Love it.
You guys telling this story made me think that this past weekend I was in New York visiting my kids. And there's a restaurant there called Beauty in Essex.
Oh, yeah.
And Beauty in Essex, at one point, unfortunately, they have decided to close it down, probably because it cost them too much money. But at one point, I was there just a couple of years ago, went down to the ladies' room. And when I got down there, there was a full champagne bar in the bathroom for women only. So when I was with my sister, I called her at the table and said, come downstairs to the bathroom. She said, are you okay? I said, just come now. And she came down. She and I stayed in the bathroom and drank champagne.
That's fantastic.
About 40 minutes until my husband came and started beating on the door. He was so concerned that we had fallen in and sneaking or something.
Now that's the best bathroom. That's the best bathroom. That's way better than the bathroom at Throw Social. So I'm going to talk to them about getting champagne in that back bathroom, but then it won't be a secret anymore.
Beauty in Essex is a great restaurant. It was one of the first. It was a restaurant that's like a speakeasy where there's like a storefront and you have to have a password to get into the back. I've been to the one in Vegas and they're both terrific. I'm sorry to hear that they're closing that one down though. That's disappointing.
Well, no, they're not closing it down. They just were closing. They just closed the champagne bar in the back.
Oh, they closed the champagne bar. That's okay. That's
the restaurant.
Maybe sanitary, but okay, good.
Hey, Kim, let's start with some folks on the back nine, understanding sort of your transition and how that went for you. It's always difficult. They've heard our story. Josh and I have talked about how we had to make that transition too, off the front nine broadcasting career, on air, TV personality, and then trying to reinvent yourself. Maybe take us through just briefly, like how you were able to reinvent yourself and still you're still thriving in, like I said, the audio space with podcast and traditional radio.
Sure, absolutely. Well, first off, congratulations to both of you for making the transition because I don't think it's that easy and a lot of people don't. It's a lot of hard work if you decide that you're dedicated to the idea of staying in broadcasting. I had been in television for 28 years or more. With my final stop here in Boston, I was in 3 different television stations. I started at 5, 6, and 11 on the NBC affiliate here. I was there for 9 years. I went to CBS. I stayed there and for about 3 or 4 years and was recruited over to do that Fox morning show. We were extremely successful, and I was there for about 9.5 years when it came to a close. I had to make a decision at that point as to whether I wanted to stay in Boston or if I would move on. And I was offered television jobs in other major markets in the country. But as both of you know, once you've built a brand in a major market, it's tough to leave that market and leave that brand behind, especially when you are 50 something years old. And do you really want to take that on? My kids were in school. They were committed here. My husband had a great career. So I made the decision it was time to step away from TV altogether and to look for something else. The beauty of it for me was that I had a brand in the marketplace. So when I decided to step out of TV for good, I was lucky enough to have others come forward in the broadcast world and say, hey, do you have some interest in trying this? So I did try radio and I enjoyed it very much and was really thankful that that was a backup plan for me. I spent 5 or 6 years as a morning drive host on an AM station here in Boston, and then was recruited to Bloomberg. I went to Bloomberg and did both local and network radio and television for them for a period of time until Bloomberg decided that they would no longer do local the way that they were doing it. So they let the whole bureau go. And then that is really when I came to the crossroads. That's when I had to make a call. And I'd had a friend who for a long time kept saying to me, let's do a podcast. Let's do a podcast. This is going to be fun. So we thought, okay, let's give it a shot. And we started that back in January and been very fortunate for it to take off. And again, been able to sort of play off of my brand in the marketplace. It's pretty local and a lot of fun. But, you just have to keep imagining, keep thinking, and keep talking to the contacts that you know. And that's not just in broadcasting. That's anything that you do. What's the most relevant? What direction can I turn? Because you don't get to a certain age and you lose your skills completely. Your mind doesn't go. Maybe it's just time for a shift.
What do you like about the medium of podcasting? What keeps you intrigued by this particular application of communication?
Well, Josh, first and foremost, you well know what it's like to work for management in broadcast.
Yes. Do we ever?
Yes, that's right. That's what we don't like.
So I own this. I make the decisions along with my business partners now. But I make the calls and I love that. I'm sort of at that place in my life where I'm sort of tired of other people telling me what to do,
Absolutely,
short of my kids and my husband. They're still telling me what to do. And I guess that's a lifetime. But yeah, I don't really want to be at somebody else's beck and call. So that's one of the things I really love. The second thing I love about it is that you are free to talk about whatever you want, however you want to talk about it. And we can't do that when you're restricted by broadcast. I still have broadcast ties, as I think we mentioned, Dennis. I still have a radio show, a business radio show locally. So I still have those restrictions. But what I love about the podcast is the freedom.
So what do you tell people? Obviously, you had the brand and everything else, but you had to have those moments where you had to pick yourself up, right? Like we all had those. We had those moments where you're down in the dumps and you're trying to figure out what the next step is because not everybody's in your shoes, right? Like they weren't former broadcast people, but everybody has these moments in their life on the back nine or a lot of people do, where they have to pick themselves up and reinvent themselves. What do you say just in general about that for the people, what you went through, what you had to do to pick yourself up and get back on track and do something different, be an entrepreneur and all the things that you were able to accomplish?
Well, I'll tell you, I think you couldn't have said it more eloquently. When this time comes and you're someone who has been very busy and you've lived in a demanding world. And again, that's not just broadcasting. That's all of us who have worked a full-time job for most all of our lives. You do have to pick yourself up. And there were some very, very tough moments. And thankfully, I have a support system around me. First and foremost, a family that supports me every day, a husband that has supported me since we were in college. So I had that. But I realized that my problem was that I was limited to my imagination. And I think that's for everyone. All I could think of is what I knew, and I didn't realize what I really knew, what I could do. Since getting out of broadcast, I've also taught classes. I have counseled political campaigns. These are things that I didn't realize I know because they were such second nature to me. I just assumed everybody knew that. So I think when people get to this stage of your life, you need to sit down and sort of catalog, what is it that I've done all of this time? And then show it around to others, because I think then suddenly you realize, wow, I thought everybody knew how to do that, or I thought that that was the only thing I could do and the only way I could apply that. And I think people would be amazed at the skills they have and the ways that they can be applied in other directions.
Yeah, and one of our to build off of that, one of the things that we talk about a lot is being curious. And you had a guest on fairly recently. People will know Joan London, and she talked about her career as an author, not just as a broadcaster, right. And that she had an agent who said, "Write what you want to know more about. Write what you want to learn more about." Have you taken that approach into podcasting? Have you found yourself bringing in guests that you've wanted to learn more about them and about their subjects? And how has that informed the podcast?
100%, Josh. I mean, I've always been curious. I'm a person who's worked in news all my life, right. And I don't think you're working in news and you're not curious. But that's one of the wonderful things about the podcast is that I can invite, again, I'm in control, so I can invite people on who I think are interesting. And I think if I think they're interesting, or if I have interest in what it is they do, I think a lot of people probably do as well. Perfect example of this. Joan London was a great one, by the way. But a perfect example is this coming week, we have a forensic medium on, and she has spent all of her life. First, she was a police officer, and now she works with the FBI and goes out on missing people cases and what. So I'm fascinated by mediums. I'm fascinated by people who work in law enforcement, because I can't imagine. So this is a great show for me because it's something that I'm going to learn so much about. So yes, the answer is yes. Being curious, I think, is a great part of going into that second phase of your life.
We'll be right back.
Friends, over the last few seasons, we've introduced you to our friend Pete, or more to the point, our friends at Pete. Pete is the present and future of corporate training. It's a proprietary platform that allows mid-sized companies to build relevant, contemporary training programs quickly, efficiently, and inexpensively. With Pete's AI-powered platform, you'll get customized, interactive, threaded curriculum built in a fraction of the time at a fraction of the cost. Whether it's compliance, leadership, sales strategies, technical skills, employee onboarding, or anything your company needs for its ongoing training and culture demands, Pete designs and delivers exactly what you are looking for: fast, efficient, and effective. With Pete, you can focus on what matters most: developing your employees and growing your business. Pete, corporate training reimagined. Visit Pete.com, that's PETE.com, to learn more and get started today.
All right, back to the show.
Yeah, that's true for us too. I think part of the real fun for us is coming up with the guests and figuring out where we're going to go with the next guest, and the breadth and the width of what you're able to do, and in terms of who you can talk to. And then it's not just about us, it's who's going to be interesting to your audience, because, we all have different audiences. So that's just a great perspective. Let's shift gears here. I don't want to get too much in your personal life, but, this is the back nine. We're navigating different things in our lives. And one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was, we have the perspective of two guys that had fairly long marriages, 20 years, and then had to go through a divorce. You've been married more than 35 years, happily married, and you still are. So give us the perspective of a long time, somebody who's been married for a long time, that now presumably has had to watch some of your friends split up and the people around you, because we really haven't shared that with our audience. There's a lot of couples out there that have to navigate really challenging stuff on the back nine when you have really close personal relationships and friendships with friends and couples, and those couples around you start to fracture.
Randy and I have found that what's always been said to us about these kinds of experiences really is true. And that's that in the end, it's very difficult as a couple to stay close to split couples. As friendly as we've been, we had a dear set of friends that we traveled the world with for a long time. And I would never in my life have thought, first off, that they would split. And secondly, that we would have to split that friendship. And ultimately we did. And I find a lot of times that if the women brought the relationship together, the women stay in contact and the men lose contact with one another. That has been the case in that particular situation with us. But one of the things that I think we have tried very hard not to do is to get into the middle of those relationships where that causes problems for us and for the couple even further. We had a couple friend who split up and turned to us in hopes of us being able to figure that out for them. And I think we do have a very enviable relationship. I'd be the first to say that. We've known each other since we were in college, and he's the greatest friend I have in my life. And I wouldn't trade him for my right arm, but I would give my right arm for him. but we can't help other people's relationships, unfortunately. That's just our relationship and that's who we are. But I think it's a really tough thing for people. And I think we're seeing more and more as the kids go off to school and couples have to sort of reevaluate their lives. If they didn't stay in touch while they were raising the kids, they're certainly not in touch anymore now that the kids are gone.
Yeah, that's a topic that we actually explored a little bit last season. How have you navigated it then? Has there been a sense of loss when you've lost half of a couple that was friends with you before?
You've hit the nail on the head. Yes, the answer is yes, and it's made for some really interesting conversations between Randy and me.
Sure.
And what we should do about that, and how we could possibly stay. But I think a lot of times what happens is that there becomes resentment when couples split, and if you try to stay in contact with both of them, then one or the other resents you for having done so. And again, that pulls you into the middle of that relationship. And you don't want that. And a lot of times these have been people who our kids have been very good friends with their children. And then you start to get into that issue of, you don't want to pull those friendships apart. So it's a really tough place to navigate. And it's something that I never really thought about when I was younger. When couples split up, one of you was friends with one of them, and that was the end of it. You didn't get so deep in, like, as I mentioned, you have children who are friendly, and it really does change the whole thing.
Yeah, it really is really difficult. But all right, well, let's switch gears to something a little more positive. Have you discovered anything on the back nine that you have more time for now that you really enjoy doing? We've had a lot of people on the show say, you know what, I always did this when I was younger, but I didn't have time to do it when I was raising kids and when I was working full time and everything else. And now on the back nine, I'm rediscovering certain things. Are there certain things that bring you joy that you're able to do now that maybe you weren't on the front nine because you were too busy?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you that I am blessed because my parents are living, and both of my parents live in just outside of St. Louis. And I have made it a top priority that I'm traveling more to see them and to spend time with them than I'm going anywhere else right now. I've worked really hard to make sure that my 2 adult children are doing the same. Randy and I get out to see, Randy's mother is still living. We're spending more time with them now than I have spent with them for the last 25 years. And I realize now that my visits with them are numbered, which is a really hard. I think if I'm dealing with anything at this stage in my life, that's what I'm dealing with the most, is that my visits with my parents are numbered. So that's the thing right now that's the top priority for me. It's the most important thing. To get there, to spend as much time as possible, to make it quality time, to do what I can to make their lives comfortable and happy, and make sure that there's no regrets on the part of my kids or anyone else that we didn't get as much time in as possible.
No, that's so good. And you keep reiterating themes that we've explored. We had our dads on for Father's Day, and it went so much better than we thought. We, as Dennis said, we had this time capsule now of them sharing, their lessons from being seniors to when we were in middle age, and their advice about what they saw coming, what they didn't see coming, and helping us prepare for what's coming next. Beyond that, what are the other topics that you still want to pursue that you have not yet explored on your podcast? What are the kinds of, you talked about the medium, but what are the other, that sounds fascinating, by the way. What are the other?
Way, Josh, I'm a little nervous about she's going to come on and tell me something I don't want to
know. That goes with the territory though, right? You have to be open to that. So what are the other things that you're curious about and that you want to explore and talk about and get out there to your audience?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I love is meeting people who you know them for one reason, but they really are someone else behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And getting people to divulge who they are. A couple of weeks ago, we had the former governor of the state, who is beloved here, Charlie Baker, on. And I've known Charlie for years and years, not as a politician, but as a dad, because he lives here in my town and his daughter is my son's age. And I've known his wife. And so it was really fun to have Charlie on. And he talked about his love of music. I think when he was governor, people knew that, but they didn't know exactly. He's a hard rocker and he loves all this kind of stuff. And we had so many people who responded to that and were so amazed. So it's fun to have people on and to talk about things that have nothing to do with why you know them. So we hope that that's really the direction we can take the podcast. More and more people who their name will draw people in and the topic will make them stay. So I hope that that's the direction that we continue to take it in.
Well, that's wonderful. We hope people will tune into your podcast too. It's Carrigan and Company podcast. I assume you're everywhere, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get podcasts. And we're just so grateful, Kim, that we could have you on today. Thank you for your insights. We'd love to have you on again. And we'll be fans and listening. And I'm glad we're partners with a client out there in Boston now. And that's going to grow together. So really blessed and grateful to have met you, Kim. And thank you for coming on our show.
Gentlemen, thank you. I want to tell you something. I think that the concept behind this podcast is so needed. And I love that two men are talking about this kind of thing. You have no idea what kind of impact that can have on individuals. So thank you guys for having me and continued success.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, we do. We just cut a promo before you came on that's now we're going to have to throw in the trash because we're going to use your quote instead because that was better than we did. Thank you so much, Kim.
Well
All
done.
right, guys,
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks. See you later.
All right, bye-bye.
Well, buddy, that was terrific.
Yeah, it really was a great wonderful guest for you to acquire there. She's terrific.
Well, it's just serendipity, you get that's what's happening too, we should say. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's what's happening too, right? When you're aware of the things around you that are coming at you, you're like, wow, okay, I met her for a reason. And now we're going to have her on as a guest. It's a no-brainer. We're doing business with her. Again, it's a home improvement company in Boston that is going to have her endorsement. And then I learned her background. She learned how similar we were. And it was just a lot of cool stuff to talk about.
Yeah, and I just met somebody on a plane who I think is going to be a great guest. Same kind of thing, right? And so to take your point larger for our audience, right, is that when you're in this position of awareness and in your integrity, like there's so many things we could talk about with her, but you do kind of understand, well, who else is on this path and who else can help us reach other people who are not yet on this path. Not that we're trying to force those people onto this path, but that we're trying to invite them into something that they may not yet be seeing in middle age because they're caught up with all of the other things that are going on in their life. Their kids. I mean, she talked about how families, when the kids leave the house and they become empty nesters, that becomes a critical point in a relationship, right? Those are the kinds of distractions that can keep people from being focused on where they need to be in middle age.
Yeah, my favorite thing she said is to take inventory, and I don't know if I'm going to use the exact word she used, but to take inventory of the things that you are actually good at that may be outside the lane of your career, that you are really, really good at in terms of things that you could do as you're making that transition. So many people want to stay in jobs that they cannot stand as long as they can stay in them because that's all they know, and I'm only going to get paid for that, and I can't do anything else because this is my safe lane. But if you really do take inventory of all of the things that you're good at and you start talking to people around you and be curious, there are so many things you can do, right? There are so many other things that can fulfill you and, fill your cup up, right? And I'm thinking more about that of people in my life that I think have told me, I can't do this. I can't get out of this lane because X, Y, Z. It's all I know. It's all I can make money at. That's not necessarily true.
No, it certainly isn't true. And when you do that, when one does that, they are staying in a mindset of scarcity and they're not honoring their integrity because they feel stuck. And look, I've made that transition over the last 6 or 7 months and it has not always been easy, but there is a certain, even though I haven't achieved some of the successes I thought I would right away, I see the pathway to that. And the liberation that came along with it has made every little setback worth it nonetheless. The point that I would take from her that I really like is the curiosity about people's dualities. Not that they're closeted something evil or dark, but that they have other interests from how we know them. I think that's fascinating. And I love that she's exploring that on her podcast, and she does. And I like that we get the opportunity to do that too.
Yeah, I mean, just a terrific guest, I think. And then I think it's hard to talk about, but when you've been married and happily married for happily coupled as long as she's been married for 36 years, but it was a college person, so she's been with her man for 40 years. She's seen a lot of breakups, and that's not easy. It's not easy to navigate those friendships. And I remember, going through my divorce, and I think we were at the age where friends did take sides in some respects. They decided who they were going to be friends with just because of the way things go down in certain situations. And I know that's difficult, but I think at some point for each side, they have to be able to keep some of their friends, right? So it's very difficult when you're going through a divorce if somebody just abandons you completely. So all I'm trying to say is I hope that the people out there that stay married realize that in the divorced couple, like, they probably both need you, but you got to make a choice to be support for at least one of them.
Yeah.
And if you have to split up as a couple in terms of who you're helping, that's okay too. But be there for them. Like, it's important. They can't just disappear from your life. They were important to you.
Yeah, right. I look back at like my wedding pictures. I've been divorced for several years now, and how few people that came to my wedding are still in my life, and really in either of our lives, my exes and mine. I mean,
Thank God I am.
Right. Well, you're one of the ones. But that's such a snapshot moment of where you are at. I got married I was 28.
Yeah, we were young.
And it's such an interesting thing that 26 years later, some of my friend group is the same, but a lot of my friend group is very, very different because of the places that life takes us, and that we get to explore that, and Kim gets to explore that on Carrigan and Company.
Absolutely. Well, we'll look forward to listening to more of her podcast, Carrigan and Company, and I hope you'll be listening to more of the Back Nine podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, I'm Kevin Zurich with Three Bridges Consulting. If your company is considering podcast advertising, consider Three Bridges your go-to partner. We specialize in connecting your brand with the perfect podcast and podcast hosts to reach a highly targeted audience. Podcasts really provide a unique opportunity to speak directly to your core consumer in a very engaging and intimate format. If you know who your audience is, we will find them and ensure your story resonates. So give us a call today to discover how podcast advertising can enhance your overall media strategy. Our number, 760-590-7634. Again, 760-590-7634. We look forward to hearing from you.
The Back Nine is meticulously curated by Janine Stella and recorded at Pixelworks Studios in Delray Beach, Florida.